Your home isn't stressful because it's messy. Most of the time, it's stressful because of 15 small, invisible frictions you've simply stopped noticing. A light switch that floods the room when it should soften it. A drawer that fights you every single morning. A habit so automatic you've never once questioned whether it's actually working against you. None of these are dramatic. None of them require a renovation. But by the time we reach number 15, I think you'll feel something in your own home loosen that's been quietly tight for longer than you realized. Let's get straight into the promise of this video. 15 specific Danish ideas, small enough to start tonight, that shift how a home actually feels, not how it looks in a photo. Every single one of them is something I either grew up with, without ever being told why, or learned organizing homes across Copenhagen for 8 years. Before we go further, I want to be transparent about what this video is. What follows is built from real, documented Nordic living practices, filtered through my own professional experience and interpretation, my honest translation of it, not a strict formula or medical advice. This is for education and entertainment, meant to help you see your own home a little differently. I'm Freya Holm. I grew up in a small fishing town on the Danish coast, daughter of a teacher and a fisherman, in a house where none of these 15 ideas were ever explained out loud. They were just how the house worked, the same way you don't explain to a child why the sun rises. I trained as an interior designer in Copenhagen, and for 8 years, I organized homes for urban families who kept fixing the wrong problem over and over, because the actual friction in their homes was never the clutter itself. It was these 15 small, unnamed habits sitting underneath it. Here's the perspective I want you holding on to for the whole video. None of what's coming is really about the objects in your home. It's about a series of small decisions. How a room is lit, how quickly a small mess gets handled, what's allowed to sit unresolved, repeated daily until they stop feeling like decisions at all. That's the actual mechanism behind why a small Danish apartment can feel calmer than a much larger home that's technically organized, but was never built around any of this. Stick with me, because idea number 7 ties directly back to something we've talked about on this channel before. The reason Danish homes don't close their curtains. But from a completely different angle you probably haven't considered. And idea number 15 is the one that pulls all 14 before it into a single 30-second habit you can start using literally tonight, the moment this video ends. If any of this is already making you look at your own space differently, go ahead and hit like and subscribe if you're new here. This channel exists to hand you the real system behind Nordic living, not another list of hacks demanding more of your time, and it genuinely helps to have you here for the rest of it. Let's start with idea number 1. The smallest and easiest one to try before you've even finished watching. Idea 1 starts with ro, a word Danes and Norwegians use for a specific kind of calm. Not the absence of activity, but the absence of unfinished business quietly pulling at your attention. In practice, this means handling a small mess the moment you notice it, not later. A cup rinsed the second you're done with it, not left for later. This isn't about tidiness as a virtue. It's about protecting ro, because an undone small thing doesn't just sit there physically. It sits in your attention all day, whether you're consciously thinking about it or not. The shift. The next small thing you notice, handle it in the next 30 seconds instead of adding it to a mental list. Idea 2 is simply about time. Danish households tend to eat their evening meal noticeably earlier than what's typical in much of the English-speaking world, often around 6. This isn't dietary advice. It's structural. Eating earlier leaves a real stretch of evening, the part of the day Danes protect most fiercely for Hygge, instead of collapsing straight from dinner into bed. The shift. Move your evening meal even 30 minutes earlier, and notice what that extra unhurried stretch actually does for how the evening feels. Idea 3 is friluftsliv, literally open-air life, a foundational Norwegian and Danish concept we've talked about on this channel before in the context of children, but it applies just as directly to adults. Before the day gets claimed by a screen, step outside, even briefly. This isn't fitness advice. It's about your body meeting daylight before it meets a notification. Idea 4. Warm water before coffee. Something many of you already know if you've watched this channel before. I won't dwell on it here except to say it's still one of the smallest, most consistent habits in Danish mornings. Worth repeating because it's easy to let slip. Idea 5 leans on the spirit of fika, the Swedish institution of a deliberate paused break, usually with coffee, always without rushing. Applied to the middle of your day rather than just the evening, it means a genuine, undistracted 10-minute stop somewhere between late morning and early afternoon. Not a scroll break, an actual pause. The shift. Protect 10 minutes, phone face down before the afternoon claims the rest of your attention. Idea 6 is a small ritual, not a religious one. A brief, conscious pause before the first bite of a meal. Noticing what's actually in front of you before eating it. Danish households don't formalize this the way some cultures do, but the instinct to actually arrive at a meal rather than eating mid-scroll or mid-task runs through a culture that treats a shared table as one of the central Hygge rituals of the day. Idea 7 is the one I promised, and it connects directly back to something we've discussed before on this channel. Why Danish homes so rarely close their curtains at night. That habit isn't really about windows. It's about a broader comfort with visibility, an unwillingness to hide the ordinary state of a home. Idea 7 extends that same instinct indoors, keeping the areas around your sink and counter clear and dry, not because clutter there is shameful, but because a home that's honestly, visibly in order, even in its unglamorous corners, carries the same quiet ease as a window with nothing to hide behind. The shift. A cloth kept near the sink, wiped down after use, extends the exact same principle the curtains represent, just turned inward instead of outward. Idea 8. Airing a room out for a few minutes each morning, windows open, even briefly, even in winter. This habit runs across much of Northern Europe, Denmark included, and it's less about a specific ritual and more about a simple, repeated refusal to let a room go stale, literally and in feeling. Idea 9 returns to friluftsliv, this time in its fullest form, going outside once a day with genuinely no agenda, not a walk to somewhere, not exercise, just outside for its own sake. I used to think this one was almost too simple to count as a habit, until I noticed how differently a day feels when it's included versus when it isn't. Idea 10. keeping work out of the bedroom entirely. No laptop on the nightstand, no notebook by the pillow. This is less a named Danish concept and more a boundary most Danish homes hold instinctively. A bedroom is for rest, full stop, and nothing in it should quietly argue otherwise. Idea 11 brings us to dostadning, a word usually translated as death cleaning, which sounds far heavier than the actual practice. It simply means never letting anything sit in your home in an undecided state for long, including clothing that no longer reflects the life you're actually living. I've stood in closets with clients holding pieces from careers they'd left years earlier, still hanging there, quietly arguing that the person wearing them wasn't quite finished yet. Sit with that for a second, because I think more of you have a version of this than you realize. The shift. Let your closet reflect who you are now, not who you were or who you assumed you'd become by now. Idea 12 draws on the same instinct behind lagom. Just enough, nothing extra, applied to storage. Every object gets one specific home, always return there, so putting something away never requires a decision. When every choice is already made in advance, an enormous amount of daily friction simply disappears. Idea 13, 3 sentences before sleep. Not a full journal, just a small nightly note, something you don't want to forget, something that went well. This isn't a uniquely Danish ritual by name, but it echoes the same instinct as Hygge itself, paying deliberate attention to what actually made a day good, rather than letting it blur past unnoticed. Idea 14 returns to lagom once more, applied broadly. Fewer items in every category. Fewer gadgets, fewer half-used products, fewer decorative objects collecting dust without earning their place. Not minimalism as an aesthetic. Just enough, repeated in every room, and idea 15, the one that ties all 14 before it together, a genuine 30-second reset each evening, before dinner or screens take over. The counter wiped, a cushion straightened, a bag returned to its spot by the door. This is row in its most literal, physical form. A home reset just enough every single day, so it never accumulates the kind of disorder that eventually needs an entire weekend to undo. Here's everything in one breath. Handle small things immediately, eat a little earlier. Step outside before your phone. Warm water before coffee. A real pause midday. A conscious moment before eating. Clear water. Area surfaces. Air the room out. Time outside with no agenda. No work in the bedroom. Let go of clothes from a life you've left. One home for every object. 3 sentences before sleep. Fewer things in every category. And 30 seconds each evening to reset what you can see. None of this was ever about having a bigger home, or more time, or more discipline than you already have. It's about 15 small, named habits, row, lagom, friluftsliv, dostadning, hygge, doing quietly, daily, what no single big change ever could on its own. Tell me in the comments which number your home is missing the most. I read every single one, and naming it is usually the first real step towards starting it. And if you know someone whose home feels heavier than it needs to, send this to them. Sometimes the relief isn't a renovation. It's 15 small corrections starting tonight. If 15 feels like a lot to hold on to at once, here's the simplest way to actually start. Pick the one room in your home where you spend the most unphotographed time. Not the living room you show guests, but the kitchen at 7 in the morning, the bathroom counter you see every single night. Ask it 2 questions, the same 2 questions Danish homes seem to answer without ever discussing them out loud. Does this space currently have anything sitting undecided in it? A small mess, an unreturned object, something quietly unfinished? And does this space right now actually reflect the life you're living today, not the one you were living 2 years ago? Wherever the answer to either question is uncomfortable, that's where idea 15, the 30-second reset, should start tonight. Not in the room that already feels fine. I think about my mother's kitchen more than almost any other room from my childhood. Not because it was beautiful in any magazine sense, but because it never once accumulated the kind of quiet disorder that makes a home start to feel like a problem instead of a place to rest. I didn't understand as a child that this was a system. I thought it was just how kitchens worked. It took me years of walking into other people's homes, watching disorder pile up in exactly the way it never did in hers, to realize that row wasn't something she had by nature. It was 15 small, repeated decisions, most of them invisible, made consistently enough that they stopped looking like effort at all. That's really the honest truth underneath every idea on this list. None of them are impressive on their own. Nobody photographs a wiped counter or 30 seconds of straightening a cushion. But Hygge was never built from the impressive things. It was built from the unimpressive ones, repeated daily, long enough that a home stops needing a weekend of catching up and starts simply staying the way you left it, calm, a little lighter, already resting before you are.